What's going on, everybody? It's Zen. Had a few requests and a couple ideas here, and it's about drugs, the color blue, tools, and the alphabet, and the word mystic as opposed to the word occult. So, the first obvious thing here is the color blue and the symbolism with it, and whether or not it has some real world effect. And I see this picture of this guy. He was on TV a while ago. And if we start at the beginning, if it's on TV, it's probably covered in a bunch of A, symbolism, and B, it's probably not true. This guy turned blue from ingesting too much colloidal silver. And it's obviously completely ridiculous. It's obviously makeup. The only person ever, no one's ever seen anybody like him. And then we go into this person that I've seen a couple of videos online. I wonder if it's good editing. I don't know what it is. But apparently, from ingesting copper, his blood turned blue, and this goes into the blue bloods. This concept of blue blood. Now, even if his blood were blue, which I suppose there's a possibility of it, what does that do? What real world ability or consequences it from changing the blood in color? Certainly there could be something that occurs. Certainly I speak quite a bit on removing all sorts of elements from the body, but what exactly does the blue blood mean? Now if we look at the three elements, the three materials that are often spoke of as far as the elite or winning an award would go, you'd have gold, silver, and you'd get your bronze. And I think bronze has quite a close connection to the copper and brass and bronze, as in the color and the idea of what it might be. So gold, silver, and bronze. And then we get into what pennies are made of. They're made of copper. And what a copper bowl is and the use of that, if anyone's ever used that to charge water, or if anyone's ever put urine or aged urine in it, they'll notice the color becomes blue or greenish blue. Now, I don't want to go too far in the symbolism, but let's get into this idea of drugs and technology and tools. The first drug that man was ever given, the first drug, the first technology, the first tool was language. We can't think of it any other way. A drug is something that puts pressure on and exhibits force upon consciousness to change a perspective, to change a dimension, to alter an experience. So in the most basic format, everything is a psychedelic drug, everything that you ingest. You could go into a room that is full of a certain color, a certain smell. You could go and place yourself in any type of environment, and it would be a psychedelic experience. It doesn't mean just going off and being a hippie and smoking weed and doing mushrooms. That's part of it, I suppose. But the psychedelic experience, the psychedelic life, has to do with psychology. Thus the word psychic, psychology, psychedelic. So anything that anyone ingests, anything that anyone uses, you can alter people's minds with language. You can adjust, and your entire life has been predicated upon the misinformed and informed magical uses of the language, the first technology. So when someone questions what type of drugs can be used and what drugs do, if you eat vegetables all day long. There's no denying that that will have an effect on your consciousness. Thus, it's psychedelic exposure. If you drink coffee all day, obviously people's mind will change. Obviously, their experience will be altered. If you take prescription drugs or medication, perspective and psychedelic experience will change. So, as we get into language as the first, foremost, primordial essence of magic and the occult, but as someone suggested to me, and I think it's a pretty good idea, but then again, it's about this. It's about changing perceptions. So the word occult versus the word mystic. If you say the word mystic, people have a better, more open ear, I suppose, to the kind of ideas, where occult, it sounds dangerous and bizarre. But as we move along this timeline or this path on this planet, we need to expand our capacity and capability to use, accept, and alter languages. We have to, we can't have this idea and this notion that there are 7 deadly words that we can't use, the 7 words you can't use on radio. How did they become that way? It goes into the whole idea that George Carlin spoke of, and so many others, that there are certain words that you can't say. And how is that? How is it language that certain letters structured in a certain way to make a word become completely, oh my goodness, you can't say that. Yet if you said something similar in a different language, it would sound the same, but it would have a completely different meaning. So how is it that these thought forms, these people that have put in kibosh on the ability to use letters and sounds in a certain way? And I think where we are now is opening up the capacity to be able to use words, use letters, sounds, vibrations, tones in any way, and people to become more aware of their actual meaning, that underneath what the he ha ho, whatever the sound, whatever those, you can't just cut out speech patterns. You can't just cut out certain sounds and say putting those sounds together become somehow bad. I know that obviously be through entrainment of magicians, certain words cause a gut reaction. And it's not even gut, and it's not even instinctual. They're trained. No one would ever have a bad reaction to certain words unless they were trained to. Thus, why you can speak and say similar sounds and words in other languages, and no one would even consider it. No one would even bat an eye because you're entrained to these things. So with all that being said, we get into this word mystic, and it seems to be a more delightful word to the ear than the word occult, even though occult stands for the cults of the everything, or the O, or the open, as the word open comes from O and pen, meaning a star inside of a circle, which means a pentagram inside of the everything. So O is 50, which has something to do with the 50 states. We could get into a larger diatribe on that, but we're not going to do that here. We'll just talk about this word mystic. So the connection between mystic, as in the X-Men character, and the blue color, and the blue bloods, and all of these, are they just symbolism? Is something more powerful to blue? Because now we get into this classic example of the red versus the blue. That is the most primary example of the red and the blue. You look at a cop car, you see the red and the blue. You look into the energy of those two things. Blue keeps people awake. So if you have blue lighting in your house, it keeps you up and it gives you a very beta brainwave. And if you notice that on computers, you can have what is called a red tilt or a red tint to your screen. And it causes people to be calm and relaxed. So you'd put this on at nighttime. Now, that would be more of a delta brainwave. So it changes brainwaves. At the most basic thing of what red is, red makes people hungry. Red is a signal of stopping. So we get into these kind of, and it's heat. It's the heat generator at the base. And if you look at fire, you get the difference between what red heat is and what blue heat is. But it's certainly, as is shown to most people, a polarity. And once again, getting into all of the other work that I've shown, it's not opposites, not left and right, but it's up and down. So your base chakra is connected to red, and your higher chakras are into blue, indigo, and violet, which to anyone really is quite a similar aspect. It goes from your throat chakra, which is blue, and upward to your indigo and violet, which is your pineal gland and what you'd consider above that as a godhead. So it has to do with your highest realm. So we go back into what people try to express as polarity of good and bad, because it's always been played that way. It's the red team versus the blue team. It's the higher consciousness of the angelic beings, which are blue, and the lower consciousness of the demonic, devilish beings like the devil that are red. So, is one of more value than the other? Is one better than the other? I don't think it's very hard to say. No, it's not. And if there is a way to get rid of all of these elements in the body that are not good, that are not helpful to the human system, which I speak about often, is the ultimate goal, is the next goal of humans' evolution as a species, as a whole, as individuals? Is it to turn your blood blue? And what would that do? What kind of, because certainly we can look at chlorophyll and what the color of the blood might be in plant life, but do we go back to an idea of, okay, your blood is red and yours is blue, and there has to be some, once again, division. Oh, you have type A, you have type AB, you have type O, and it becomes the four blood types and the four seasons and the four elements and all of those fours. And then now we're back to the red and the blue dichotomy. Now, if in that there is more power, then certainly there's some reason to do it. Certainly, for some people at certain times, there's a reason to imbue the body with what would be the elements that would cause their blood to be blue. Now, if it was just for the change in color, if it had no effect other than altering a color, then it would have no purpose. But certainly, getting rid of all of the toxic heavy metals in your system is a good idea. So is the alteration, is it just symbolic? Or is it an actual thing that occurs? And so, getting back to this language and these tools, by changing vibrations, if we connect vibrations to colors, because they are, if you look at the color spectrum, and you look at the vibration, the frequency of certain colors, it's different. So as you go up and down, the color changes as the frequency changes. So is something with the blue blood changing a frequency of the human body? And can we use the technology of sound, whether it be with musical instruments or with our voice or with intoning or using bowls or meditations or whatever it might be, using sounds would to alter our makeup, our blood? And what of these characters that they always show you that have blue skin. And what are their powers? Dr. Manhattan. What could he do? And it wasn't just symbolic. So this just gets into giving you guys an idea about altering language to be more mystical, and do these mystical words and these mystical substances and these notions of how to alter consciousness, is it just symbolic? Is it just an idea? Or is it literally some physical trait that has more power to it, just like certain elements surely have more psychedelic effects? When I was speaking earlier of the psychedelic effects of things, we can certainly say a small amount of a mushroom or other physical psychedelic substance will have a more profound effect. So as language is a tool, can the language have a psychedelic effect? And a psychedelic effect to the point of altering blood chemistry. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was more of a large perspective and question for everyone. So if you have any input on it, feel free to throw something below, and try not to come at me with any ideas of what he said or she said, but can we find any other pictures or any other reality than these two pictures that I found? One was a video, and one was this obviously made-up character who took too much colloidal silver and was on TV, so no one's ever seen this before. But the blue blood is a very interesting concept, so anybody that has consumed large quantities of copper, do we have anybody else that's actually done this? Can we find any other, and what are the results? Because again, I think there are some qualities to it, and maybe it imbues magical powers. Maybe the copper, maybe the change in blood changes something. So let me know what y'all think. Cheers, y'all.